All right, welcome everyone to the Introduction to Jira Align webinar. We're going to get kicked off here at the top of the hour. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us today. My name is Vicki Murphy. I am an Enterprise Solutions Engineer with Valiantus, which is a Platinum Solutions partner with Atlassian, and I'll tell you a bit more about who we are and what we do later on in the webinar. I am also a SAFe certified practice consultant as well as an Atlassian certified professional, and I've spent the last 5 years with Valiantus getting to help implement Atlassian tools specifically in our enterprise strategy and planning practice, focusing a lot on Jira Align, which is what we're here to talk to you about today. With me, I also have a team member, Kristen, who is going to be helping by sending some helpful links in the chat and monitoring the chat in case anyone has any questions. On the agenda for today, we've pretty much wrapped up the introduction here. We are going to cover a couple more slides, just some concepts that are good to know as we get into Jira Align. We'll jump into the system and do a live demo, and then we will wrap up with any questions. So please feel free to submit any questions you have as we're going through in the Q&A panel in Zoom, and we'll answer as many as we can at the end of the hour. Let's go ahead and jump in. First, whenever we start talking about Jira Align, it's good to talk about the general audience that it has been built for, because it is a little bit different than the other Atlassian tools that you may be familiar with. Jira Align is designed for organizations that have implemented or are implementing a framework for scaled Agile, such as SAFe or Spotify. Really, whenever we are talking about working with Jira Align, we often go in the people process tools in that order, where we are starting to implement some form of our process before we start to implement the tool. In fact, we find it typically works best whenever we have been through one program increment or quarterly increment, you may call it, from a process perspective before we start implementing Jira Align. That just helps us understand the process better. It's a little less change on your end users all at once, and it can help make decisions about configuring Jira Align a little bit easier because you already have some of that process under your belt. If you hear anything about Jira Align, you will typically hear the phrase that it is a very large tool. You will hear that throughout today as well, especially when we get into the demo. It is designed for large-scale enterprises, so it does have a higher price point than the other Atlassian tools. Atlassian puts the metric out there that it's designed for organizations that have at least 500 developers. We do have some other options available for this type of scaled planning for organizations who might be on the smaller end. We have found that they often struggle with either just the size of the tool or sometimes the price point. And we're going to talk a little bit about one of those options in just a couple slides before we jump into Jira Align. So do stick around if you think you might be in that boat. We'll point you to some additional resources. And lastly, when we're talking about Jira Align, it's really designed to connect our strategy to our execution across the enterprise and support the various planning activities we have at each level of the organization. We really see Jira Align help organizations empower their teams by making work visible across the enterprise in real time, giving leaders actionable data to make better decisions faster. When we talk about Jira Align, we're often talking about three hierarchies that really come together, and that is people, work, and time. And if you think about all work at a really high level, it boils down to these three concepts. What work is being done, who is doing that work, and in what time frame are we trying to complete that work in? And Jira Align has native objects around each of these concepts that we will see when we get into Jira Align. And so I really like showing this slide because I think it helps you make a mental map of the Jira Align system before we jump in and start clicking all around. So let's just walk through this at a high level. When we're talking about our people over here on the left, we're talking about our enterprise, our leaders, our C-suite typically, who are planning out that strategy over maybe a year, maybe multiple years into the future. We then break that down into our portfolio, where we're planning out things like our themes that might be a year or more, and getting down into more tangible, deliverable concepts with our initiatives or portfolio epics. Below that, we have our program or a team of teams layer, where we're starting to talk about our features, work items that can be delivered in typically one program increment or quarter by one team of teams. And then below that, we have our Agile team level with our stories and our tasks. Each of these, again, is going to be developed or delivered in a different time frame, and that's what we see represented down here at the bottom in blue. And then we have these business vectors that really plug into each of these layers, the concepts of products or OKRs and some high-level budgeting that we can do at the various layers of scale. One concept to point out over here on the far left that you'll notice is that we have both Jira Software and Jira Align listed here. Jira Align is intended to layer on top of or sync with at least one team tool. Typically, this will be at least one instance of Jira Software. It can connect to multiple instances, and it also does have a connector for Azure DevOps if your teams use that tool. Just a quick background on that. Jira Align started as a tool called AgileCraft, made by a company called AgileCraft, and several years ago, Atlassian acquired that tool and turned it into Jira Align. Whenever this was AgileCraft, it was really starting to be designed as a full stack tool where teams all the way up to our leaders were working in one system. When Atlassian acquired it and turned it into Jira Align, they found that Jira Software was already a superior team tool, and it still is today. Everything from our Agile boards, our ability to connect Jira Software with team tools like our code repositories and pipelines, and the wide array of marketplace add-ons that are available, all are really great at the team level in Jira Software. When we start to get above that into that team of teams, portfolio enterprise level, or needing to coordinate work across a bunch of different groups of people across a larger time frame, that's where Jira Align really starts to shine, which is what we'll be demonstrating today. Just some more quick facts about Jira Align to be aware of. It does have one add-on or app for it, and it is called Enterprise Insights. This is a data lake for Jira Align that gives you the ability to connect that data to a BI tool of your choice. Popular ones are Power BI, Tableau, but we also are now able to connect this to Atlassian Analytics, which is Atlassian's new BI tool that they have created as a part of their cloud platform at the enterprise tier as well. And so if you are an enterprise cloud customer, you would have the ability to connect your Jira Align data into analytics. Some new and upcoming features of Jira Align. Atlassian has fully rolled out their new navigation of the tool. So if you saw a demo this time last year, you actually probably would have seen it in the legacy UI. But over the last year, they have really done a lot to roll out that new functionality that we will see today. We have the ability to now add milestones for features, capabilities, epics, and themes, and visualize those on the Jira Align roadmap. There's a new capacity planning module that I will be showing today when we get in the tool. And Atlassian continues to streamline Jira Align as a whole, as well as add to the API 2.0 and Jira connector improvements to make working with the tool even more seamless. Whenever we are talking about Jira Align, a common question we get is, what does an implementation of Jira Align look like? And typically, an implementation will be around 3 to 6 months to launch that first program or team of teams. In that time, we'll be going through these general phases. Typically, if you talk to any partner about implementing Jira Align, these will be the phases that they will talk about. Going through some discovery and planning, configuring your system, doing some training, going through one of those PI planning events with Jira Align. And that's usually in that first 3 to 6 months. After that, then we start to expand into more programs and expand into the portfolio. One thing that we really focus on when we're talking implementations is this training, kind of looping change management into that concept as well. Atlassian put on a study with Forrester around Jira Align, and they found that the biggest risk to not receiving a high ROI on Jira Align was really when change management wasn't focused on during that implementation process. And so we've developed training classes and materials to help our customers achieve that high ROI by facilitating that change management process. So we really focus a lot on that in that first 3 to 6 months, especially. Right. Before we jump into Jira Align, just want to mention one of Atlassian's other tools that is a great stepping stone to getting into Jira Align. And also, if you're at a smaller organization, may actually help facilitate all of those planning activities for smaller teams. And that is what is actually gone through another rebrand, is just the plans functionality in Jira. This was previously called Advanced Roadmaps, and several years ago, it was called Portfolio for Jira. So we actually need to update this slide for the next one. And just like the name says, this is a road mapping tool that is included in the Jira Cloud Premium or Enterprise and Jira Data Center environments. It is useful for organizations who are really looking to scale their Agile process. It is great for planning for around 20-ish Agile teams and provides visibility, shared focus, and accurate delivery planning across those teams. It gives you the ability to connect your team level work up to higher level initiatives, helps you with some dependency management, and even has some team level capacity planning functionalities. As we'll see today, Jira Align has a bit more robust capabilities around that higher level planning. It can support planning around hundreds of teams and people, and just gives you a bit more of that power around that higher level scaled planning activity. Advanced roadmaps does often serve as a stepping stone, as I said. It is often a great first step into just getting that visibility, starting your team's planning together. And then once we're a bit more mature, getting into Jira Align is a very common roadmap we see our customers going on. If you want to learn a bit more about advanced roadmaps, sorry, I really got to work on that rebranding on plans and other apps that are available in Jira that can help facilitate this. We have another webinar called our Project Portfolio Management webinar. Kristen is going to throw a link to that in the chat. Please feel free to sign up for that, and you'll see a more in-depth demo of the plans and other apps. And Jira Align is also mentioned in that webinar as well. Right. With that, let's go ahead and get into the Jira Align tool and take a look at it. Here I am in Jira Align, and I like to really start off by just going through the navigation of the tool. And I like to do this for a couple of reasons. Really to showcase that image that we saw previously of the different hierarchies of people, work, and time starts to come into play, even with just how the tool is organized and how we navigate around the tool. And it's also just great to showcase how easy it is to jump around the tool to get the different visualizations we may need. We navigate Jira Align through the top panel here, the top navigation bar. This is very similar to our other Atlassian cloud products like Jira and Confluence. And under each of these, you will have a list of teams available. And let me refresh here. And so essentially what we will be doing is what we call setting the context in Jira Align. So it is choosing the group of people that we want to view data for, and then we will choose that time box. So if, again, we think about that people, work, and time, we're setting that context of the people and time so we can view the work for that combination. So here I can come in and choose one of my portfolios. This would work the same way at that program and team level that we see here. And then we use the left-hand sidebar over here to choose first our time frame. So this is going to mostly be through our program increment, or you might call this a quarterly increment time box, essentially that 8 to 12 week period where we're planning. We can choose one or multiple of these in the sidebar here. And then we have our modules below that. Each layer of scale is going to have different modules available. You will see some overlap across them, like the backlog is present everywhere. And then we will see some that are more specific to that layer of scale. Below, we then have even more additional items, different modules we can look at, reports, and more pages as well. We're going to focus primarily on the modules that are up here at the top. What we've seen with Atlassian's remodel of the UI is they've really moved those areas that most customers use and also start to get immediate value out of after an implementation up to the top list, making it really easy for us to navigate. We continue along the top row here, there is a product module in Jira Align, and they've also added the idea of custom hierarchies to Jira Align. And these just give us the ability to have more of a orthogonal slice of our data where our teams might be planning out together, but we need to do some reporting based on a specific product or potentially another factor that cuts across those programs and across those portfolios here. As we're going through the different modules, all of them have a little star up here at the top left by the title. So we're able to easily navigate to items that we have starred. So this will also save your context so you can quickly get to your program and portfolio that you have selected here. The items drop down. This is all of the different objects that we can create in Jira Align. Just like our other Atlassian products, there are permissions working behind the scene. So you can control who can create what here. And as an admin, I have all of them visible here. I also want to call out that a lot of the terminology in Jira Align is customizable. And so if you have different names for your work items or your increments or time boxes, you are able to customize that in Jira Align. Using the out-of-the-box terminology here that aligns really closely to the SAFe or Scaled Agile framework. We, of course, have a create button. It works just the same as our other Atlassian products. This is how we can quickly create an object from anywhere in Jira Align. Moving over to the far right, we do have the ability to search our instances. I like to give this pro tip in case anyone already has Jira Align who's attending. Here you can search for a keyword or a work item ID, but you do have to put the number sign, pound sign, hashtag, octothorpe, whatever you want to call this symbol in to actually search for a work item ID. When we do this, it's going to pull up all of our work items that match that search and categorize it by work item type here. Object type. It will also search things like sprints and program increments. We do have notifications in Jira Align. These are Jira Align specific. They don't currently sync with any of our other Atlassian notifications, but there are also email notifications to go along with these. We have the ability to create custom checklists in Jira Align. This just allows us to implement some of our process into the tools. If you have a specific program increment planning checklist you want someone to go through, you can build that in and then give links to your different modules in Jira Align that you want them to use, just helping give some of that guidance of your process along with your tooling here. And close out of that. We also have some built-in training simulations from Atlassian that can be enabled in your site. The question mark here gives us a contextual help button. What is great about this is the fact that it is contextual. It is going to show us the documentation for the module that we are currently viewing. So here I see the documentation on the portfolio room, which is exactly where I am at. If I were to click into other modules, it would change along with me. And it gives you a link to pull this up full page if you want to view it in a different tab in your browser. From there, we have admin settings and your profile where you can control different personal settings. Great. Now that we see how we can navigate and how this really is organized around those layers of scale, like our enterprise portfolio, program, and team, let's jump in and start taking a look at some of the different modules that customers typically enjoy. Like I said, when we talk about Jira Align, you will commonly hear that this is a really large tool. It is, in fact, in my opinion, impossible to cover everything in the tool in an hour. So we're going to hit those highlights and really start to focus on areas that we see customers not only loving, but finding valuable pretty quickly after an implementation. And starting out at the very top at our enterprise tier is our strategy room. Whenever you hear the word room in Jira Align, really think of it as a dashboard for that layer of scale. It's going to have different widgets that pull together information across our layers of scale to give us that high-level reporting on our progress. Starting out in the strategy room, we choose our time box through what we call a strategic snapshot. It's just a group of PIs, so typically we'll do this on an annual basis. And then at the very top, we're going to see our mission, vision, values. This is literally the mission, vision, and values for your organization, making sure all of our work is lining up to who we are as an organization and what we are trying to accomplish. Below that, we have our strategy pyramid, one of the most popular visuals you will see in any Jira Align demo. It just starts to showcase how all of this work is, again, connecting up to our strategy, to that top tier of who we are and why do we exist. What you'll also notice as we start to go down here is on the left-hand side of the pyramid, it starts to break into two, and it starts to showcase our objectives and goals, those more business-driven outcomes that we are striving for, alongside our work items we've already mentioned, like our themes and our epics and our features. There are actually three additional layers here that we could enable that if we want to add even higher levels of goals. So if you have like an annual and a 5-year goal, or if you have a North Star layer, we could add those in here and continue connecting it upwards. Those terms are also customizable to really represent the overall planning process and outcomes that your organization is striving for. Here we, again, have our work items on the right-hand side that all align to a different layer of objective and goal. So it's almost like a second hierarchy in the tool, really, where we're able to parent our objectives. These actually go all the way down into the individual layer, up into our strategic goals, so we can start to see how they help each other. And then we can link them to the work that we are doing. So how does our work, again, play into that strategy of what we are trying to accomplish as an organization? And if we go ahead and scroll down, I'm going to scroll past this OKR heat map, and I'm actually going to come down here and talk about our OKRs a little bit. So not only do we have this hierarchy of goals that goes down into objectives, but we also have the ability to turn these objectives into OKRs, or objectives and key results. And so we'll go ahead and open one of these up here. If you're familiar with OKRs, we really love recommending John Doerr's book, Measure What Matters. We actually have an OKR workshop coming up in August, where we not only talk about that book, but we talk about tools, including Jira Align, and how they can help us with tracking those OKRs. And I bring that up because what we find in Jira Align is that the OKR functionality really aligns to what John Doerr lays out in that book. We have the ability to track an objective, that high level. What are we trying to accomplish as an organization? Something like become a leader in this space, make the absolute best product. But then we start to ask ourselves, how are we going to accomplish that? We have a couple of ways that we can track that here in Jira Align. One of the popular ways is through our key results. These are objects that are linked directly to our objectives, and they carry a metric around them. Here we're able to set the metric. We have a few different options, from count to percentage to currency to net promoter score, and even a custom score that we can set up ourselves. And then we are able to set that overall goal that we are striving for. Where are we at today when we make the key result? And then where are we at over time? We can keep track of those updates towards these key results through what we call the check-in process. Here we can just come in, and I often see this being done on a monthly cadence. We can update that overall count or metric here. And then we can even add in a note to say what updated. And as we update that, it's going to update our percentage and score here. This is from a 0 to 1 scale, or 0 to 100%, and giving each key result a score. There's also a little report here where you can start to see over time how has that increased or decreased. I don't know why that graph isn't displaying there. I'll have to look into that. We then can add multiple key results to an objective. It will then average those key result scores together and give your overall objective a score that you see here. Additionally, you can align work items to these objectives. So again, we can start to say, what work are our teams or our portfolios or programs doing that aligns to this objective, that is supporting achieving this objective here. And we can link those in here. You can even link things like dependencies and risks to actually accomplishing this. And again, you can have child objectives if you want. If you have objectives that your teams are striving for that feed into this, we can have that parental relationship. Lots of other data that we can collect, including a start and end date, what PIs we think this will be working on, and even a status of our overall objective here as well. As we start to look at this from that high level enterprise, it's helpful to see this breakdown of our overall objectives, but also here as the OKR heat map that I scrolled past. This is averaging our objective scores at each of those levels together so we can start to see as an organization, how are we going at completing our objectives at each of these tiers? And are we on track to actually achieve the outcomes that we have set forth? I'll also mention if you're following the SAFE model that talks about giving a business or a value score of 1 to 10 and tracking that after the fact, there are fields to support that as well on those objectives. Scrolling back up here, we are able to see even more progress information. This is going all the way down that hierarchy, pulling in how many stories have we completed, where are we at on completing our themes and our features, what dependencies do we have added in for these work items, and again, starting to track how many for strategic goals, how many themes that are linked to those goals have been completed here. Also, at the enterprise level, we have the roadmap. This is actually present at every level of the tool, but often when we're talking about the enterprise tier, we're talking about our leaders who are really going to be setting that vision, casting that vision into the future, where it can be displayed on our roadmap of our work items. So we can start to understand priority and target dates and also progress with our ability to hover over this and see that roll up of progress. Anytime we mention the word roll up here, we're typically talking about the roll up of story points from the team level. Even though we're here at the enterprise level, what this is really going or looking at is it's going through, these are our epics here, through our features down into the child work items and letting us know on a effort basis, how much have we actually completed. Something you'll hear whenever we go through Jira Align training or Jira Align implementations is that the data we're looking for is really at the team level. We spend a bit of time in any implementation making sure that our teams are actually working well together, or not working well together, but working through our processes that we need them to at the team level, creating their work, estimating it, moving it through their workflow, starting and stopping sprints if it's applicable, because that data just feeds into visualizations like this, into the strategy room, and into many of the other views that we will be talking about today. All right, jumping down to the portfolio tier, what I want to talk about first is really the backlog. And so talking again about priority and casting that vision, we have a backlog module in Jira Align at every tier. And so actually up here at the top left, you can see that we have a backlog for our themes, our epics, our capabilities, features, and even all the way to our objectives here. In the backlog, you can carry out activities exactly what you would expect. You can set that priority by ranking your work items. So here we can drag and drop, very similar to a Jira backlog. Right click to use some quick buttons here to start to indicate as a whole, what are we going at, or what is our priority for us to deliver? And then even PI by PI, what's the priority within that program increment that we are trying to deliver? Lots of customizations we can do here, the ability to add in different columns to filter the backlog, to quickly view orphan items. So these are items that don't have parents or may not have an estimate provided, that just allows you to start to understand where do we have data missing. So where are we not linking work all the way up the hierarchy? Where are we not estimating our work? So as you go into any planning discussions, you have the right data available in the tools. Let's go ahead and open up this our epic tier, and let's go ahead and open one of these up and take a look at it. Our epics are intended to be completed by multiple programs or team of teams across multiple program increments, and so we're going to see fields that support that style of planning. We have multiple different tabs here, and I like to mention that in my instance here, I have everything turned on. But as we go through implementations with our customers, we absolutely focus on an MVP or minimum viable product to ensure that we aren't overwhelming users, and we also aren't just throwing a bunch of fields out there that are going to have garbage data because we haven't trained our users on them and they don't really play into our process. So what you see might be slightly overwhelming, and that's because we just have everything turned on so you can get a good idea of what is capable here. Of course, we have the ability to collect generic information about our epic. We have a contained in section on every work item. This shows you that parental hierarchy. So I'm on my epic. This is my parent theme. If I were on a feature, it would show me the parent epic and that epic's parent theme, and so on and so forth. Again, we can add in one or multiple programs, add owners. We can add in one or multiple program increments. Jira Align does support multiple forms of prioritization. One popular choice is weighted shortest job first or WSJF. It has a whole model that allows us to work item by work item, PI by PI, fill out the WSJF calculator here, and then it's just going to calculate that for us at the end. This is well documented, especially on this Scaled Agile Framework website, and this follows that calculation recommendation to a T here. This is just helping us understand what work provides the most value in the quickest amount of time. We're also able to estimate our work PI by PI and as a whole. Jira Align has multiple forms of estimation. Most common choices are points or t-shirt size. There are 2 week-based estimations, but we don't see those being used as heavily. It's usually either points or t-shirt size for that relative estimation. And there are even more fields down here, date fields, scoring fields if we want to just give a swag to help us prioritize. And then on every work item, we can see those child work items linked below. And here again, it's giving us a lot of progress information about each of these child features, but that progress is a roll up, meaning it is going all the way down to the story level, looking at story completion, story point completion, so we understand where we are at in completing the estimated work. If we scroll on up here, we have that roll up also present up here at the top right. And I love showing the requirement hierarchy, which is present on every work item, giving us an idea of the full hierarchy of work here underneath that parent theme. And all of these are quick links, so you can open up those work items from there as well. We have several other tabs present on our epics. We have a design tab, not as heavily used. The intake tab allows us to customize our intake form. So if we want certain data collected when a new epic is created, so we can understand the business case, so we can build the business case, sometimes we can do that here. Our benefits tab starts to pull together information from our other tabs, giving us that lean business case, and has additional customizable fields at the bottom. The value tab, this one is another form of prioritization with a value score. I usually see this or one of the other options we've already covered enabled, typically not multiple. Our milestones functionality is newer functionality, but it is quite useful already. We are able to add up to 20 milestones per work item from the theme down to the feature level. We can give a name, description, start and due date, a state to that milestone, and also a customizable category that your admins can customize. Jira Align does have some high-level budgeting capabilities. It is not designed to be a budgeting tool of record, but it is allowing us on a epic by epic basis to input a high-level budget and to understand that accepted spend. So this is that spend of how much it is costing us to complete work at the team level. This is an area of the tool that a lot of folks really love when they see a demo. But I really start to emphasize when we do implementations that this is all driven from data at the team level. We need teams to be working in Jira, feeding data into Jira Align for a couple of PIs before we start to see this data populate. It is actually very challenging, if not impossible, to fake data in Jira Align, which is really great for customers because it means that we are looking at accurate information here, or real information here. So all of these different calculations, forecasted, estimated, and accepted spend all really come from understanding how much it costs for our teams to be completing story points and then feeding that in here. We can do deeper dives in the system to understand how it is calculating this information, understanding all of the work that plays into it, and even what those different calculations are and how it calculates it. So again, team spend per point is the basis of these calculations. we have an estimated spend and then forecasted spend, and we're going to talk a little bit more about that forecast next. So jumping over to the forecast tab, Jira Align has a forecasting ability allowing us to understand or to predict how much work we are expecting each team from each program associated with this epic. And you can also do this at the capability and feature level. How much work are we expecting from each of those teams in the upcoming PIs? You can do you can summarize this for the program and for the epic as a whole. And this is really great functionality, but what takes this even further are the forecast and capacity modules, which is what I'm going to jump to next. This. So we're going to jump a couple of modules down here and go to the forecast page. The forecast page is basically an aggregate view for each PI of that forecast tab that we looked at. So we looked at it for a specific epic. But here we can look at team and program level for our epics or our features and start to fill out that forecasting information more at an aggregate level. And so here it has all of our work. We can apply that backlog rank, again, thinking that we've gone in and we've applied that priority in the backlog. Then we come here and we start to understand where teams are able to complete this work and how much we expect from each team. As we go through this, it gives us a lot of information like the overall PI estimate, the team estimate, the capacity needed here, lots of fields that we can actually enable and disable through the configure columns up here at the top. And then it's going to start to compare that workload that we are loading each team up or each program if we're in the program view by their capacity that we have said they will have for that PI. And when we breach that capacity, it turns red for us. This starts to serve as that idea of a cut line for each team and for the program as a whole as to what work can we actually complete in this PI. And that capacity is driven from the capacity module. The capacity module is newer, but it is becoming the basis of planning for Jira Align. And here we are able to view, I'm at the portfolio tier, so I'm able to view the overall capacity for each program. But I can also click into this and understand the capacity for each team. It's going to take into account how much work can we complete per sprint, how many sprints do we have in the upcoming PI, and we can also build in some buffer here through the capacity percentage and buffer points. This just withholds some of the capacity in the sprint, so a lot of folks or a lot of customers want to go with the 80-20 rule that 80% should be for feature or epic work, and so they can set that here. The rest of this can be based off of historical data like your past capacity plans or your velocity once you're in the tool, or you can update this each PI. So if there is a holiday week, if there's a known heavy load of PTO or something in the upcoming PI, we can update this accordingly. Also, in the latest release of Jira Align, Atlassian enabled this to also be a read-only view so that only specified people can come in and make edits to this, but you can allow many people to view this. What this does is it then groups the entire program's available capacity together, and it gives you this forecast versus capacity view at the top. Again, we can do this for our epics or for our features, PI by PI. I would really love to say that this idea of a very high overcapacity percentage is uncommon, but actually it's more common when we start to implement this functionality with our customers that we see something like this. And again, giving leaders the actionable data to make better decisions faster, they are able to then start to understand what needs to come out of the PI, what really is the highest priority, and how can we start to lower this, because no one's going to complete 5,000% of their capacity here. Let's go ahead and we've seen a lot here at the portfolio level. Let's go ahead and jump into our program level as well. All right. We're going to find our mobile program. Kind of keeping on this idea of planning our work. So we've prioritized our work. We've looked at our roadmap. We've built out our forecast and our capacity. And now it's time for our teams to actually plan together. And Jira Align really shines at this program level of helping multiple teams coordinate their work for an upcoming program increment. Starting with the program board here, the program board is nothing new. We have seen organizations use this type of planning all the way back to when it wasn't even digital and we did it on a whiteboard with a bunch of strings and sticky notes and tape. Now we have a digital version of it here in the here in Jira Align. And what's really great about it is it also stays up to date in real time. So it prevents the need to do a bunch of double entry from planning on a whiteboard to planning in the tool. And it also serves as a report as you go forward as to our progress. So let's go ahead and take a quick tour of this. On the program board, we essentially have a grid. Our rows here represent our teams in our program. Our columns represent our sprints at our PI. You can view this for multiple programs or multiple PIs, and you can also filter it down to a specific team if needed. When we go into a PI planning event, we're going to be planning out our features, which are represented by these rectangles here. Throughout that planning, we might identify many dependencies on other teams or other programs or even external entities. And those are represented by these plus icons. And then we might also set objectives for that PI, which are going to be represented at the top through these, what are these hexagons or diamond shapes. As we're going through this, we are able to click into any of these work items, fill out a bunch of information, understand what stories have been planned for these features or linked to those dependencies, and even understand our planning issues. The color coding on the board, I like to say, follows stoplight mentality. Gray, blue, green, we're doing good. Red, orange, yellow, we have some potential planning risk that we need to resolve. And as we go through that planning, PI planning process, we're hopefully resolving all of that. But also as the PI starts to progress, we might start to slip. We might start to not complete some of that work. We might start to introduce new work that we haven't planned out fully. And that's going to show as this red, yellow, orange throughout the PI as well. Looking at this might feel like a lot to adopt. There are different views that allow you to view more information available, and there's also a handy legend in the top right. Usually after a PI or two, teams are really used to using this program board, interpreting it, and find it really valuable. And again, because it is real time, they are just entering the data once as they're going throughout that planning process. As I mentioned, we are able to add dependencies into Jira Align. Jira Align actually has a dependency management module. Dependencies are a work item. They do live in Jira Align and they link to our features and then are delivered through our stories. We have a lot of visualizations around dependencies. I think one of the first most valuable things that we see customers recognizing whenever they get into Jira Align is this dependency module, understanding where are our teams actually dependent on each other. Those are handoffs that might be slowing us down. They might turn into bottlenecks. They could turn into risks. So being able to visualize this is really, really powerful and almost immediately available for teams so long as they're adding them into the tool. As we plan out our dependencies, we're able to follow a workflow and essentially do a handshake between the teams. We can collect a lot of information about these, including what team is requesting this, who does it depend on, when is the work needed by, when have we committed to it, is it blocked or not. Visualizations like the dependency grid allow us to understand what work has our team or our program requested of others, what work do we have to do in this upcoming PI, and lots of quick actions we can take here. From there, we already mentioned we could visualize these on the on the program board, but also we have several reports like the dependency matrix to help us understand where are all of these different dependencies existing, where might we be able to alleviate some of this for our teams. Another piece of our PI planning process is often creating risks. Risks are another work item that can be created in Jira Align and linked to various work items, and then visualized through not only the program board, but also the risk Rome report. So Jira Align does follow the Rome methodology where we can resolve, own, accept, or mitigate a risk. And then we have visualizations like this letting us know how have we actually managed our risks throughout the PI. Are we resolving most of them? Are we finding mitigation paths? Or do we have a lot that need following up on? Just to open one of these up so you can get an idea of all the different fields we are able to add in here. We're able to, again, link it to our work items, understand how this was resolved, and make a lot of different notes so that we are able to revisit this if we have a similar risk in the future. And there's even some reporting on what is an open versus a close, what's our open versus closed rate here, and some high level reporting on risk of occurrence and impact of occurrence as well. Right. So as we're talking about planning out, those are the planning out our work for PI or multiple PIs. Those are our primary modules. As you can see, it really helps us connect this work from the team level all the way up into the enterprise level, so we can understand what our priorities are, what is the vision, communicate that overall intent of our leaders down to our teams, but then start to communicate that idea of progress back up. And that's what I want to focus on in the back half of this webinar, is really the modules that help us with understanding that progress. Before we do that, I want to flip back to our slides and just mention a couple more things about Valiantis here. So Valiantis is a platinum partner with Atlassian. We do hold, among others, Atlassian's Agile certification. If it essentially, you can sum up our services by, if it's in the Atlassian world, we are able to help with it. I like to say we do everything in the Atlassian and Atlassian adjacent world. We hold all of Atlassian's specializations. We are able to do implementations, migrations, cleanup services, hosting services, as well as have an entire custom development team to help us build out anything that might be custom to your organization. One other service that we offer is our training. So we do have training classes on all of the Atlassian products, including Jira Align. We actually have a class that is designed for organizations who are interested in learning more about Jira Align before pulling the trigger to actually implement it. And that is called our Jira Align Bootcamp. And our next class is coming up on August 7th. So in just a few weeks. Kristen has kindly thrown a registration link to it in the chat. And if you use the code VAL20, you can get 20% off. In this class, what we do is we actually put you into the instance that I am sharing with you today with our dummy data. We walk through these layers of scales and cover all the modules I'm covering today and more in depth, letting you click along with us. We talk implementation tips, best practices, and really just answer any of your questions that you may have. We let you continue to have access in our system for up to 2 weeks after the class, and just provide you with a ton of resources around what an implementation looks like, how we use Jira Align, the best practices for syncing Jira and Jira Align along the way. So we have found customers really enjoy this opportunity to get that hands-on experience before having to purchase licenses. Right. Let's go ahead and jump back to Jira Align and just talk about a few of those areas where we are able to understand our progress and roll up of progress throughout Jira Align. Let me just take a quick drink here. All right, since we're at the program level, let's start by talking about the program room. Again, our program room is really our dashboard for this layer of scale. And it has a bunch of different widgets bringing together that data. Again, a program being our team of teams, data from across those multiple teams together here. We get quick snapshots of our overall features, stories, and story points planned out for this upcoming or present PI or past. We can see our forecast versus capacity widget here. We have our planning checklist. So as we are going throughout this PI, what do we need to be doing? What modules should we be using? And then we have helpful information like our load versus capacity. Once again, understanding, have we overloaded the teams here? We can break that down into individual teams as well. We see we have overloaded every team here. We might need to actually go address our plan so we can make this a little bit more realistic. As we start going through the PI, we also have a lot of great reporting here around our team progress, both in points and in count. How are we progressing at completing this work? We can see our dependencies as well as our objectives and risks right here in our program room. It's really kind of a one-stop shop for all of that data that our program or teams have planned out for this PI. I see this visualization being used a lot in those more program-focused ceremonies like Scrum of Scrums, PO Sync, RTE Sync, giving you that one place to view everything. We have a bit of a sprint roadmap here, understanding how much work has been completed each sprint, a mini view of our backlog here from the feature to the story level. filtering available here, and then a quick progress metric overall for our PI. What's also great is this can be filtered down team by team using the team icons here. So if you think of a ceremony where each team might be giving an overview, again, we can just filter this down, understand each team's load, progress, capacity, risks, dependencies linked to them, stories, features linked to them, and then flip back to the program view very quickly. Other popular views for understanding our progress, the work tree is always a crowd favorite. And that is because this is one place where we can see that full hierarchy of work, not just for a single work item like an epic or a feature. We can do that with the requirement hierarchy we already saw. But here we can go PI by PI. We have a couple different view options, but we can start to understand that overall PI progress with this dashboard and then do a dig in. Here are all of the epics associated with this PI. Well, maybe I want to understand where my points are coming from and what my child items are. So for all of these epics, I can expand to see my child features, expand to see my child stories. And again, as we're talking progress here, it's all about the roll up. What story points am I rolling up into this feature, and how do those roll up into the epic as well? Going down again all the way into the stories. Often when we hear customers interested in Jira Align, a common request is I don't have a place to view all of the work for this upcoming PI, for this program or portfolio. I need a visualization around that, and this is a very good answer to that. Jumping back up to the portfolio area, we also have our portfolio room. So we looked at the enterprise room, we've looked at the program room. Here is the portfolio room, and it can be viewed for one or multiple PIs, giving us the ability to not only understand our current and past progress, but also understand where we're going in the future as well. So kind of dual on the planning and the progress side. Here we can understand how much work we are allocating towards each theme and how we are progressing at that throughout our PIs. We can see a PI roadmap here. Again, a little bit of a view of our backlog. And then we have a breakdown of our PI progress for each program. Again, if we hover over this, we'll see it's all about story points once again. So again, we start at the team level when we talk implementations because visualizations like this only become valuable when our team is completing their work and connecting it up the hierarchy. We also have more financial views of this room, linking to our investment versus spend report, understanding how much we are investing in all of our themes here. What's our overall PI cost and funding for each PI, and understanding that forecasted, estimated, and accepted spend as well. And the last thing we'll show here is just the objective tree. So we talked about objectives a little bit back at the beginning of the webinar, but one of the summary areas that we can start to see all of our objectives in one place is this objective tree. It serves, it has a ton of different filters and sorting options available. Quick filters to understand our work that is at risk, on track, or completed, or off track. And then we can control our different columns here, but we can start to see how many key results we have for each work item, how many work items do we have linked, etc. I believe if we click on this, it can even give us a quick pop-up of those overall key results. We also have the hierarchy here. So if we have child objectives, we can start to visualize that. And so this is where we can start to get that bigger picture. In the strategy room, we can see that overall OKR heat map, but here we can start to kind of get that big and small picture of, okay, where are we at overall with these objectives? All right, and that really wraps up our typical content. I'm going to pull up the Q&A panel here and see if we have any questions. Oh, it looks like we might have had an issue with the training URL. I don't know, Kristen, if you were able to resend that. I'll also pull it up again and see. I'm not sure if you're referring to the QR code or the URL that was sent, but this QR code should take you to it as well. If you continue to have trouble, if you want to send a chat, or if you don't mind in the QA panel, your email. We're happy to follow up via email and make sure you get the right link. We just did a rebrand of our website, so we really apologize for that. We might have had a poor link in there potentially. All right. Let's see what other questions we may have. All right. How good is Jira Align at catching planning errors? All right. Let me jump back in here. So Jira Align is pretty good at collecting or catching planning errors. We talked a little bit about the program board already, and how it has that color coding, helping us understand where we have stories that are planned after our targeted completion date for the feature. Where do we have dependencies that don't have the proper dates? But something that I didn't catch here in the program room is actually under this backlog panel. This will also show us any misaligned stories. So these are stories that are planned in a sprint that is outside of this PI. So essentially, if we are trying to complete our features within a PI, and we have stories planned outside of that, then we're not going to hit that completion rate. It will also show you orphan stories. I don't have an example of that here, but stories that don't have a parent. And that leads me to talking about the backlog again. That orphan objects is really helpful for helping us understand where we have work that isn't properly linked up the hierarchy, properly estimated. This is really powerful. It's kind of that data validation check, especially as we're going into something like a PI planning event where where we are wanting to make sure that we have all of our data in place so we can efficiently plan during that event, that this can be very valuable for that. Looks like we have one more question here. Can we make custom reports in Jira Align? So Jira Align has many out-of-the-box reports. And what's really helpful is a lot of these modules that we talked about in the aspect of planning also serve as a report in a way. So we looked at, the capacity module that shows us the historical capacity, so we can start to understand where we met or didn't meet that plan. Our program board helps us turn into a report once our PI gets going. And all of the tiers have dozens of other reports, everything from dependencies to risks. We looked at that Rome report. All of those many of them are interactive, but also serve as our reports. When it comes to customizing reports in Jira Align, typically the customization comes from what data slice have we selected. From there, to create custom reports, we'll go back to that idea of our Enterprise Insights add-on. It is a separate licensing purchase from Jira Align, but we do find all of our Jira Align customers have purchased it usually 6 months to a year out from that initial implementation. And that, again, is a data lake, and it connects over into any BI tool, really. We've had customers connect that to Power BI, to Tableau, and also now with Atlassian Analytics, it can connect in there. And Atlassian even has some out-of-the-box templates available once Jira Align is connected for you, looking at things like flow and bringing in some of that budgeting information all in one place. And so once Enterprise Insights is in place, really the world is your oyster with custom reporting in those BI tools. Right. It looks like that wraps up our questions. So thank you everyone for attending. And we will try and follow up with that correct bootcamp link. Apologies again with the website rebrand. I think maybe we had a dead link in there potentially. So thank you very much. Thank you very much again, everyone. And please feel free to reach out to us. Our emails are in the chat if you have any questions.